I'm the Adama Farm Program Director here, and I'm a mushroom lover. I've been foraging mushrooms and learning about mushroom foraging for about 15 years now. You know, I think the best tool that I bring with me to the woods looking for, edible mushrooms or plants or berries or anything is humility. There's been plenty of times where, I've wanted a mushroom to be a certain mushroom really bad, and it's not always the mushroom you want it to be. And so it's important to, keep your ego in check and stay humble and make sure that you're doing everything you can to ID, with 100% accuracy. Well, welcome everyone. We're definitely going to see a lot of mushrooms today. I also brought some oyster mushrooms that we grew on logs here, so no matter what we find or don't, everyone will go home with something to snack on later. And I think it's important when you're embarking on a mushroom walk or a foraging walk to just know that you may not find anything, and that might be disappointing, but you might learn something new, and it's just another way to be out in the woods. And there's lots of benefits to us for just engaging in this practice of going on walks and observing what's around us. So there's fruit to harvest regardless. So what are some ways that we can identify mushrooms? What are some things about mushrooms that make them identifiable?
Colors.
Colors, yeah. What color are they? Size.
Where they grow.
Where they grow, yeah. Are they growing on the ground? Are they growing on a tree? Are they growing up a tree? And also, where are you? What region are you in? What place are you in? There's different mushrooms in Russia than there are here, although there's a lot of similar ones as well. What else?
If you touch some of them, they bruise different colors.
Yeah, definitely. If you touch them or kind of smush them or cut them, some mushrooms will bruise a different color. So there's some boletes, which is like the porcini family, that bruise blue. So you cut into them and you'll see them flesh blue, and that's a good one. Their growth pattern. So if we look around, right here we have some young mushrooms that are growing kind of in little rows, like shelves, along this log here. Like this mushroom, which is also growing on a log, but it's kind of like one big chunky one, or a mushroom that would be growing out of the ground. So growth pattern is another great way to ID the kind of tree it's growing on. Chicken of the woods is a great example. It's a very easy to identify mushroom. There's not toxic lookalikes, and if it's growing on a conifer, a pine tree, it's not edible because of the way it kind of concentrates the resins in the conifer. Yeah, and this is specific to chicken of the woods mushrooms. It doesn't go for all mushrooms, but when you find a chicken of the woods mushroom, you want to make sure that it's growing on a deciduous tree, like a maple or a box elder, things like that. So yeah, and that can also help you ID the mushrooms. Certain mushrooms only grow on certain trees or types of trees. What we think of as mushrooms are actually the fruiting body, they call it, or the reproductive organ of the organism. So often, the mushroom that you see emerging from this log is actually, the rest of it has, for lack of a better word, colonized this log inside. And so, what the mushroom roots or mycorrhizae, they eat the wood, and then, usually there's a rain, and that triggers a flush of these mushrooms, these fruiting bodies, to come out, and they drop their spores, which are their kind of reproductive seeds. What are some other things to think about or consider around foraging for mushrooms?
Check
Safety
poison
things.
ivy.
Check for poison ivy. That is a good one. Do folks know what poison ivy looks like?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, cool. You can point it out too. Yeah.
We
so-
always like to say that when you're foraging something, to only take a third of it.
Yeah, that's a great practice that I've heard as well. And why is that? Why I take only a third?
So that the animals have access to it. If there's a reproduction, it's possible for that to happen. It can, with flowers, they can pollinate. They can be pollinated, and more can grow.
But what else? Could I harvest mushrooms like anywhere? Golf course, side of the road,
Pesticide.
waste plant,
No.
That doesn't sound like a good idea.
any land that's been, industrialized spaces where you're not sure what might be in the soil, or things that have been like heavy pesticide use or fertilizer, synthetic fertilizer, you might not want to harvest from those areas.
If you can't ID it 100% poison.
Yeah. Just don't even risk it. It's not worth it. It's so fun to learn, and it's an added treat if you're able to eat what you find. And we want to make sure with 100% certainty that we're identifying what we find correctly. And again, humility is your best friend in this area. But touching a mushroom, it's generally safe. You just don't want to end up with any of that in your mouth. So definitely washing your hands after doing something like this before you eat. So don't worry about that. And I would also say there's a category of mushrooms that we call LBMs. Anyone know what that stands for? The M stands for mushroom.
Little black mushrooms?
Little brown mushrooms,
Yeah.
but I would include black. This is like a dark brown. So there's a ton of little brown mushrooms, and they're really cute, and there's just so many, and so many of them are toxic, and they're extremely hard to identify. So I'm going to ask that we hold off on picking too many of those. If you find one and you're like, this is really cute, I want to, we can have a couple LBMs, but we don't want a whole table of LBMs that we're just kind of struggling to identify, to find out that it's poisonous. It's fascinating. They're like, we don't want to see you later, so we're gonna tell you if this is toxic or not. Yeah, this is a great time because it's been raining. A great time to go out and look for mushrooms is a day or 2 or 3 after rain. You're gonna likely find some mushrooms growing before the bugs have gotten a chance to get to them. So that's something to consider. Time of year is also a way to ID mushrooms. There's certain mushrooms that grow in the fall, others that grow in the summer. So there's plenty to find. We're gonna go, you can go, there's a yellow trail with, purple trail, purple blazes on the trees that is flat and pretty clear. So if you wanna walk along that, you're welcome to. And if you wanna walk off trail, you're also welcome to. And this is just another way to connect with land and be in the woods, and it's a different way to move through the forest than maybe we're used to. You can move slowly if you'd like, and really look around, look all the way around a tree and see if there's anything on the other side. You can, kind of move faster and look for flashes of white or orange. You can look kind of directly in front of you or into the distance. It's a different way than maybe we're used to using our eyes and looking around, which can be fun. But yeah, go ahead and see what you can find. And again, we're going to bring back just a sample of what we find. So if you find a bunch of different things, bring them. If you find 1 or 2, that's great. If you find nothing, that's also great. Search. Make sense? Any questions? Okay, let's meet back here at in 15 minutes? At 1:45? 15 at 1:45. We'll meet back here. You can put your mushrooms on this stump here, and we'll ID them together or talk about them.
that mountainside? Yeah, that one, I don't want to do that one. So yeah, we're.
Yeah, that one's hard.
I
I'm like
wouldn't say I
scrambling
was
up
gonna die,
rocks.
but I don't want to do that anymore.
Well, how are you? A little sleepy today?
No, I don't go really. So where is the other?
So if you
Yeah. Everyone else is doing May. But are we allowed to come in and do that?
or no, and I think his answer would be mostly yes. There are some times when there's some here that have to be exclusive.
Right here, they're really fun.
Hard to make so they could rest, take care of their stuff.
And look what I found here. Look! Look right here! What's this? What's this?
What is that?
Is that mushroom too?
I don't know. I found one of these. Anyone else want one?
Can I put it in here?
Yeah. Anyone else want one? There's one right here.
Yeah, I'll take one. Yeah.
You know what they are?
Thank you. No, I don't. Oh my God. Oh, see, the bottom has the kind of like filament kind of look to it.
They're so beautiful.
This is.
Find something.
Yeah.
So look at our beautiful table of mushrooms here, and I love that we've gathered a lot of different kinds of mushrooms. So there's some that clearly grew like off the side of a log like these, and there's some that clearly grew vertically off of a stick like these, or more straight up out of a log or out of the
I
ground.
found all of mine on logs.
You found all of yours on logs, cool. And there's so many different colors, like this beautiful purple color, and there's browns. This one has like, this one's almost, like neon kind of color, chartreuse. This is kind of what it looks like with the bruising blue, where you can kind of see that there's like some, it kind of looks like it's turned. These are actually nuts, which is exciting. These are hickory nuts. I'm not sure what kind of hickory nut, but it's nut season, y'all. So if you find some nuts, that's something to identify. Usually the ones that you can eat are very bitter and you wouldn't want to eat them, but black walnuts are edible, shagbark hickory are edible and grow around here, butternut. So that's a host of a different color over there. Speaking of color, look at these. So this, you can pass it around. It'll be like mush by the time it gets back to the table, but that's okay. That's a jelly fungus, so it's very gelatinous, aptly named. So does anyone know the name of any of these mushrooms that we've found here? Maybe some folks already know some things. Yeah.
Well, the one you're passing around, we call it like witch's brew, witch's tongue. It's edible, but it's not really like a choice by any means.
Yeah.
We went over the pheasant, and then I believe those are honey mushrooms all the way on the left, like the little brown ones.
These
think.
here.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't personally eat them because I'm not positive.
Yeah.
That would be
Well,
nice.
honey mushrooms definitely grow this time of year, and they do have this kind of dark inner circle. I would want to see like where they were growing and check some things before knowing for sure that that's a honey mushroom, because it is one of those that like looks like a lot of other things. This is called pheasant back or dryad saddle, and this grows all through the summer. This is kind of an older one, and I can tell that it's older because this stem has darkened quite a bit, and the pores on the underside are large. They're very like visible. So when this is fresh and first comes out of the logs, these pores are tiny and it's more of like a smooth look, and that tells us that it's younger and it's less tough. So this mushroom becomes very tough to eat, but it doesn't have lookalikes that I know of, and it's edible when you find them young. People don't really eat like around here because it tends to be tough, but if you cut it, and this is how I cook mushrooms, y'all. I'm not a chef, but I want to cook mushrooms to like give them their due justice. So how I do it is I slice them thin and I cook them in fat, olive oil or butter, and you'll see that there's like a moment where the mushrooms will release their water into the pan. And this is why you don't want to overcrowd your mushrooms, because you don't want them like kind of simmering in their own water. So they release their water, that cooks off, and then they can start to crisp up. So at that point I'll add a little bit more fat, and I salt them at the end. So if you salt them at the beginning, they kind of want to hold their moisture or suck that moisture back in. So that's how you get a really yummy, crispy mushroom, and they taste really good. Garlic in there, also good. Anyone know this one? Ripped it off that log right there. It's got these kinds of rigid, woody rings. You can see that there's little pores, and it's bruising, right? Like this bruises so much you can even
Right on it.
write on it. So this is called artist conch, and it's called artist conch because you can draw on it. Yeah, they eat a lot of, they eat the poison ivy and the I believe these are kind of tinder mushroom, which they're quite dark inside, and these aren't edible, but they were used to start fires because they carry like a coal. You can light them and they kind of stay lit, so you can use them as a little tinder for fire starting.
And if anybody's looking for more information, we have a lot of great mushroom books at the library and a lot of great foraging books also. And we open at 1 today.
I know what I'm doing after lunch. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you very
Yeah, good to meet you. Good to be with you all. Happy hunting.
Yeah. Thank you.